everybody, and welcome to this SEO workshop. I'm Jan Willis from Wow Consulting. We're a digital marketing agency, and our speciality is helping businesses attract their ideal customers using all of the web technology. So web and SEO, social media, mobile marketing, and increasingly inbound marketing, or as it's more commonly known as content marketing. So let's start with a couple of definitions. So I'm sure you all know that SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it's all about building your online reputation, increasing your online visibility so that people who are looking for whatever it is that you offer find you and not your competition. And it's also about driving traffic to your website. SEO is one of the most powerful ways of doing that. So the more online visibility you have and the more traffic you're actually able to get to your website, the more opportunities there are for you to do business. So that's what SEO is. The fact is that most people build websites, but they look a bit like that. They have little or no traffic, and hence very limited opportunities to actually do business online. And SEO is about filling up your sales funnel with plenty of targeted traffic and prospects that you then have the opportunity to go on and close and convert into customers. And being on the first page of Google actually matters. It is the case that only 1 in 10 of online searchers will go past the first page of search results. So if you're on page 2, 3, 4, 5, or wherever it happens to be, chances are they're not going to find you. And also, the top 3 positions on the first page of Google command the vast majority of the clicks. So if you're in first position, you can expect about 30% of the clicks. If you're in second position, around 15%. And if you're in third position, it's probably around 8 to 9%. And then the further down the page you go, the smaller your share is of the traffic. So actually being on page 1 of Google, is important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. So there are some other things that you need to consider as well, because even if you're able to drive lots of traffic to your website, if it's the wrong kind of traffic and it's not converting, then it's not actually doing you any good. So if SEO is done well, it attracts not just any old traffic, but it attracts the right kind of traffic, people who are genuinely interested in what you've got to offer, who you can then nurture through that sales funnel to the point of sales engagement. And one of the things that's really important to understand about SEO is what we call user intent. So when someone searches online, you can make an educated guess about what it is that they're looking for from the keywords that they type into the search engine. So I've got a couple of examples here. So if someone types mobile website into Google, they might well be looking for a mobile website. So how do I get a mobile website? If they use the plural, mobile websites, chances are they're probably doing more general research, because we do know that when people use the plural of a search term, it doesn't indicate that they're ready to buy, but more that they're at the general research stage. So in this case, it might be, how are mobile websites different from desktop websites? And understanding the intent, what the information need is of the person carrying out that search, or the specific problem that they're looking for a solution to, is really important for conversion. Because you would not show the same content to each of these searchers in this example. If you did, your conversion would suffer. But someone who's looking for general information is not ready to engage with you about using your services as a mobile website designer. Conversely, someone who's looking, for somebody to actually design a mobile website is not going to be interested in general information about what a mobile website is, what sort of features it has, because they're past that stage. Okay, so understanding the user intent is really important, and that's all about doing your research and customizing your SEO strategy accordingly. So being on the first page of Google, and that's all that matters, that's the first big SEO myth. And hopefully we've laid that one to rest. But there are some other misconceptions about SEO, and I just want to put some of those to rest as well. So the first is that SEO is technical. So it's something that we should leave to the IT department or to the web designer. I have to say that there are some web designers out there who understand SEO, but there are also many of them who don't. And even if they do understand SEO, it's far too important to your business success for you to leave it to someone in the back room. Okay, so SEO is, a fundamental part of the way that you generate business, and it's something which you as business owners or as key decision makers in your organisation need to understand, and you need to be driving the strategy, even if you leave the execution to some of your technical team. The second misconception is that SEO is about making Google happy. Well, we do want to make Google happy, but the way to do that is to actually make our users happy. So we've seen a fundamental shift in recent years away from focusing on pleasing Google to pleasing our users. That's something that we will come back to a bit later in the presentation. The third myth is that social media and SEO are not related. And I have to tell you that they are related. In fact, they're very closely related, and it's becoming difficult to see where SEO ends and social media begins, because the distinction and the boundaries are becoming very blurred. And the fact is, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do SEO successfully without social media. And the final myth is that SEO doesn't require a lot of content. Well, it used to be the case until fairly recently that you could actually put up a couple of pages of or a couple of paragraphs of web content. You could build some links to it, you could stuff it full of keywords, and you would have a good page rank in Google. But that's no longer the case, because content marketing is the new SEO. So now it's about serving your customers or serving your visitors with really useful and relevant content, and also giving them a good overall user experience. So you do need a lot of content, and again we'll talk about where content comes in a bit later on. For those of you who know who Matt Cutts is, you will know that he is the godfather of SEO. He's actually the chief webmaster at Google, and he's responsible for all of their search. And what he has to say is that SEO is changing in a fundamental way. And that's mainly because Google are actually driving that agenda. They are doing things to stamp out some of the unethical and unhelpful practices around SEO, and push us all towards that more user-centric sort of view of the world. And as Matt Cutts says, although there's a technical component to SEO, actually it's gone full circle now, and we've come back to just some marketing fundamentals. So it's good old-fashioned marketing, which is why all of you need to be in the driving seat when it comes to SEO for your business. So I just want to say a few things about how search engines work. I always use the analogy that searching the web is like looking through a very big book with an extremely impressive index. So every day Google sends out its search engine spiders just to crawl the web. So they crawl all of the content on the web and they update that index, so that when someone types an inquiry into the search engine, they're able to look that up in the index and serve up relevant and useful content. And it's important to note that search engines actually rank individual pieces of web content, not whole domains. So it's pages on your website, or it's videos, images, PDFs, whatever the type of content, but it's not the whole of your website that gets ranked. Now, each of the search engines has its own specific formula that it uses to decide the order in which it will show search results. But we do know that there are certain factors that are common to each of them. And I've picked out there on the right some of the factors or the elements that carry more weight than others. There are some more that are becoming increasingly important, which I'll explain in just a minute. Although we don't know the precise formula that Google use, we do know that if we're not taking care of these things here, the chances are our page rank is going to suffer. So, it's important to make sure that you're paying attention to all of them. Now, those ranking elements can be divided into on-page and off-page elements. So on-page is all about the content on your website. So it's about how you use the keywords in your content, so on your web pages. It's about how you use the keywords in your titles. If you use it in the title, that's a very strong signal to Google that that's something that's important and relevant to the content on the page. And then there are tags, which are just little bits of back-end code in your website, which users don't see, but the search engines do, which help them index your content. So it's about making it easy for Google to understand what your content's about and put it in the right place in that index so they can match it to search inquiries. We then have off-page elements. Now, until fairly recently, that was all about who was linking to you. That was the only thing really that mattered. And the more people you had linking to your content, the better. But that's no longer the case. So although links are still important and they are still seen by Google as an indicator of how useful your content is and the quality of your content, it's now more about the quality of the links and the diversity of the links than the number that you have. So if you have 1,000 low quality, low value links, that's not as good as having 2 or 3 from really authoritative websites, authoritative in Google's eyes. Not all links carry equal weight. If you have links, for example, from the BBC or from a university or a government organisation, they carry a lot more weight than a link from just Joe Blogs. So, so they're hard to come by, but just having a few of those will dramatically improve your page rank. So, you have to work very hard to get them, but once you've got them, then they are worth their weight in gold. I think it's also worth noting that there are some links that can actually harm your page rank. So it's not that long ago that people were using link farms to build thousands of automated links and using practices like, leaving spam comments with links on blogs and using automated software to do that. If any of you have got a blog or a WordPress website, then you probably know that you're constantly being bombarded by people trying to do this. Having a lot of those sorts of links or having an unnatural link profile will actually harm your page rank. And increasingly Google are penalising sites for having, used those sorts of link building techniques. So if you have done any of that in the past, or if you've been employing SEO services and you're not quite sure what tactics they've been using to build links to your website, then I would urge you to take a close look, because if you haven't been penalised yet, then you will be at some point. Google are really cracking down. They're using a lot more manual review, so real humans, looking at your link profile and the content on your website, people are increasingly going to find that they may be on the first page of Google today, but they wake up in the morning and find that all their traffic has disappeared overnight. So this is a really big risk to your business and you need to be alive to it. So I've talked already about how search is changing, that there is less emphasis now on the volume of links. But the converse of that is that Google are giving a lot more weight to factors like the overall user experience and the extent to which people are actually engaging with your content. So for example, if they are actually sharing your content, if they are giving it Facebook likes, if they're tweeting it, if they're sharing it on Google+, but also the amount of time they're spending on your site and how much of your content they're actually looking at. Google regards that as an indicator of the usefulness and the quality of your content, because the more time people spend on your site, the more useful clearly they're finding your information. So it's important that you pay attention to user engagement, and it's also important that you're giving them a good overall user experience. So here we're talking about things like how quickly your pages load. Google do have standards that they expect in terms of page load speeds, and if your site takes forever to load, that's not going to do you any favours. They're also looking at things like whether your site is mobile responsive, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But user experience is about, it's about putting your users at the heart of search, rather than, as I say, trying to please Google. And if you give people good content, if you give them a good experience, and you're able to show evidence that they're actually finding your content useful through engagement and the extent to which they're sharing it, that will really help you with your SEO efforts. So I would suggest to you that SEO really no longer stands for search engine optimization, but it actually stands for search experience optimization. And that should be the focal point of everything that you do from an SEO perspective. So give your users great content, give them lots of opportunities to engage with you, and yes, optimize for Google, because we want to make it easy for them to index us and understand the relevance of our content. But we never ever do that at the expense of our website visitors. And I think that's a fundamental shift that we're seeing in SEO. So it doesn't matter what type of content you're offering, just make it great and make it very, very easy for people to use, find and engage with it. And that brings us to a real problem, because the fact is that most people build their websites and then they don't do anything with them. I actually met someone the other day who said that he built a website 12 years ago and he hadn't touched it since. So it's a problem for you in the sense that Google actually likes to see fresh content, because again, if your content is stale, they will see that as an indicator that it's not particularly relevant and useful and as high quality as fresher content. And also, the more often you update your content, the more frequently Google will actually crawl your website, and that helps you to move up in terms of page rank more quickly. We talked about some of the issues around websites that are not optimized in performance terms, so they're slow to load. They may have malware or invalid code on them. So those sort of technical factors matter. But the big one is that the vast majority of websites are still not mobile friendly. If you don't have a mobile responsive website, or a website which has been specifically optimized for your mobile visitors, you're not offering those people a good user experience. In fact, in many cases, they won't even be able to view your content. So you may not know this, but Apple will not allow Flash to be used on any of its products. So if you're using Flash on your website, anyone who visits your website on an iPhone or an iPad will not actually be able to view that content. And given that the vast majority of searches going forwards are going to be done on mobile devices, we're already at the 50% mark and expected to overtake that this year, but that's going to go up to 60, 70, 80%. As people move away from using static desktop computers to access the web and move to mobile devices, if you're not catering for those visitors, that's an awful lot of traffic that you're missing out on. And Google will notice. So I have to say that it's particularly important if you're a local business, because we do know that people who are using mobile devices are often looking for local on-the-go information. So they're looking for, your business address, directions, how to find you, your opening hours, because they have an immediate need, an on-the-go need, and they're looking for information about how to address that need. And this type of traffic is really important for bricks and mortar businesses in particular. And this type of traffic also converts very, very well, because people have a very clearly defined need, and if you're able to meet that, you've got a much higher chance of winning their business. The converse of that is true as well. If you don't cater to those people, they will very quickly click away from your website and go find somebody who does cater to them, and that means one of your competitors. And once you've lost that business, it will not come back. So this is actually a really big deal, and in fact it's so much of a deal that I would suggest that if you haven't already got a mobile optimized website, that you make it your number one SEO priority. Before you do any of the other things that I've talked about, make sure that you can actually cater for mobile visitors. So a lot of people have talked about SEO and whether SEO is dead and whether it's something that's still worth doing. And I have to say that, although SEO is changing, and it's changing in a pretty fundamental way, it is still one of the most powerful ways of driving traffic to your site. And if it's done properly, it can actually result in very, very good conversion rates. And I don't know of any other technique for doing that that's more effective, so long as you follow some of the best practices that I've outlined. But I did want to share a case study with you just to show the power of SEO. So this is a London waste removal company that we've been working with for the last 6 months. They had been doing their own SEO and engaging in some pretty shady practices that have got them penalised by Google. So they had low traffic, low visibility, and the traffic that they were getting wasn't converting particularly well. Because they hadn't done any of that research to understand user intent, and they weren't serving up, the right information for the website visitors that they did have. So we started by just looking at their website through Google's eyes. So we did a website audit, and we started to unpick some of the harmful practices that they'd been engaged in the past. So we got some of the spammy links removed. We started to work on giving them a more natural link profile, and we then were able to move on from there to do some of the basic on-page SEO and start to add in things like local signals. If you're a local business, it's particularly important that you make it easy for Google to understand that you are a local business, because then you will be shown in local search results as well as organic search results. So we added some unique local content, for example, to replace something like 395 pages of duplicate content. They only had about 400 pages on their site, but 95% of that was just the same content repeated over and over with just the odd word changed here or there. And Google takes a really dim view of duplicate content. It's not just about content that's been scraped from other people's sites. If you've got lots of duplicate content on your own site, that's going to harm your page rank. So we had to sort out those things. They had a static website, so they didn't have a blog. They weren't adding any fresh content, so the blog was a good way of doing that. And we worked with them, to identify some useful blog topics and start getting those posted on a regular basis. And those were also posted to their Google Plus business page. Now I'll talk a bit more about Google Plus in just a minute. We also had to address some of the conversion factors. So although they had customer reviews, they weren't on their website, and so we added them to the homepage of the website so that any website visitors could immediately see all these fantastic customer reviews they had, and that really helps with trust and credibility. So these are important factors if you want to get people to actually pick up the phone and call you. And of course we built them a mobile optimized website, and we added click to call features to that, so that people didn't have to go and look up their phone number and type it into their phone. They could just hit a big green button and immediately be put through to the business. And again, that really helps. People do not want to have to work hard. They want you to make it very quick, easy and simple for them. So having features like that really does help. What all of that did was to dramatically increase the amount of traffic that they were getting to their website and their online visibility. And I want to just sort of share some of the statistics with you. So they started with visibility of 37%. Now, 100% visibility would be if they were in the first position of Google for every single one of the keywords that they're targeting. So as you can see there, they have slightly different visibility in each of the search engines. That's because, as I said earlier on, each search engine has its own sort of specific formula that it uses for page rank, so there are some small variations. But overall, they're at 83%. There are 42 of their keywords in the first position, 92 in the top 3 and 127 in the top 10. And then there are about another 30.
Keywords or keyword combination?
These are specific keywords. No, not one word keywords. So long tail keywords, which I'll explain in a minute. Okay. So they had about another 30. They had 157 in total, so another 30 just outside the top 10. Okay, so that's a really dramatic improvement in their visibility online. And this is how it translated to extra traffic to their website. So we're comparing here the data for the period for March and April of this year with the previous 3-month period. So comparing 2 months with 3 months. The blue line is the recent 2-month period, and the orange line is the previous 3-month period. And we're comparing 2 months with 3 months because that includes the Christmas and New Year period, when you would expect, traffic to be lower. So it gives a fairer comparison. But you can see the difference between those two lines is the increase in the number of website visits. And in the graph below, you can see the increase in the number of new users coming to their website. So that's a pretty big improvement in quite a short space of time. And what's driving that increase in traffic, for the most part, is an increase in mobile visitors. So we're looking here at the same data broken down by operating system. So on the left there, you can see that big blue bar, people using the Safari operating system, so they're iPhone and iPad users. And you see there's a huge leap there in the number of those visitors, and also a big increase in the number of Android visitors. So mobile is like one of the key driving forces behind this improvement in their traffic. Now, looking just at the mobile traffic, 30% of that is being driven by Google. So 217 of those total visits coming from Google organic traffic. And that's because we've been getting them to focus on optimizing their mobile website for the keywords that mobile visitors are searching for. Now, when people are searching on a mobile device, as we've talked about already, they have different needs, and therefore they're typing different keywords into the search engines. So it's important to understand the differences, between your desktop traffic and your mobile traffic, and then to make sure that you're optimizing accordingly. So in this case, we would be looking for, the keywords which are associated with that on-the-go information, and the mobile version of their website specifically optimized for that traffic. So let me just explain what I mean in terms of keywords and long-tail keywords at this point. So a normal keyword might have 1 or 2 words in it. So mobile website would be just a regular keyword. A long-tail keyword would have 3 or more words in it. Sometimes, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. So an example would be mobile website designer in Hackney would be a long tail keyword. It's very, very specific, has low traffic associated with it compared to mobile website, which would have, like a very large search volume. But they're much more winnable keywords, and because they indicate very clearly what the user intent is, they tend to convert much better than those broad keywords, which people tend to type in when they're doing general research. It's very, very hard to rank for those high-level keywords, because there will always be people with deeper pockets than you to throw at it. So you're not going to win those, you're not going to get on the first page Google, but you do have a very good chance of getting on the first page Google for long tail keywords. And if you can optimize your content to convert those visitors, you've got a very, very good chance of turning them into paying business. If you have enough long tail keywords, it adds up to a significant amount of traffic. And this is why I said you have to have lots of content, because for each of those long tail keywords, you have to understand the intent, the problem, or the information needs that sits behind them, and then you have to serve up the right content for that particular visitor. Okay, so one page of general content which addresses every user need is just not going to cut it. So all of that's interesting in terms of the extra traffic that came from the SEO work that was done, but the real killer statistic here is the conversion statistic. So for this particular business, the number of people actually hitting that big green button and calling them to make an inquiry or a booking is the key conversion measure. Now, the way each of you measure conversion may well be different. Your conversion metric might be about getting people to opt into an email list, for example, or sign up for a demo or a consultation, whatever it happens to be. So everybody has a different conversion metric. For them, it was the number of clicks to call. So you can see here that, over that period, their total number of site visits went up by 37%. That's their key traffic measure. The number of page views went up by 53%, so that's their key engagement measure. So more people coming to the site and people spending longer on the site, looking at more pages. But their conversion factor went up by 185%. So more traffic, more engagement, but a massive increase in conversion. And that's because they were catering much better for those mobile visitors. If I tell you that their conversion rate, in terms of the number of people that are actually phoning them, having visited the mobile website, compared to the number of people that phone having looked at their information on a desktop, if I tell you that the conversion is 10 times better for mobile, then it gives you an indication of what this did for their bottom line. Because they had more visitors, they had more engagement, they had more people phoning them, and then they were converting 80 to 90% of that traffic into bookings, compared to something like 5 to 10% when we started. So that has a massive impact on the turnover and their profitability. So hopefully that sort of demonstrated sort of the power of this, what can be done. So if anybody tells you that SEO is dead, you now know that that's a lie. It does still work, but in order to get the benefits, you do have to follow best practices. So I've summarised here, what the current best practices are, but SEO is changing all the time. And if I came back here in a year's time and gave this same talk, I'd probably have a different list. Some of these elements would still be common, but there'd probably be new things. And that's one of the things you need to understand about SEO. It's constantly changing, and you have to keep abreast of current best practices. And you have to adapt what you're doing accordingly if you want to see the best results. So we talked about most of these factors. There's one in particular that I want to draw your attention to, and that is Google Plus and Google authorship. So you probably are all familiar with Google Plus, but let me ask the question at this point. How many of you are actively using it? Okay, that's about what I would expect, because the fact is that most people just don't get Google Plus. And people often ask me that question, what's it about? What's the point of Google Plus? Why should I be using it? And the simple answer to that is that Google Plus is Google's social network. They set it up as a rival to Facebook. And it has all the same features as Facebook, so you can like things, you can share things, you can post updates, share your content there. And instead of having Facebook friends, you have people that add you to their circles and you can add them to your circles. And instead of liking things, people +1 them. But it works in a very similar way. The reason why you should be using Google Plus and making it your priority if you're doing SEO is because it's Google's platform. So if someone shares something or likes it on Google Plus, Google give more weight to that than they do someone sharing or liking it on Facebook or retweeting it or whatever. So, you have to be on Google Plus if you're actively doing SEO. That's the reason. And there are some features that will help. Once you've got a Google Plus profile, you can actually claim authorship for all your blog posts. And then Google will show a nice little picture of you and a little excerpt from your author bio next to your blog post. That encourages people to click through and actually read your posts. And if you're a company, you can claim publisher rights to all the content on your website. Again, it's a trust factor. It helps with your SEO, but it also helps people coming to or looking at your search results and considering whether to click through. If you claim publisher rights, it just adds a bit more trust and credibility. So that's Google Plus. If you're not using it, get on there. And if you need some help getting started with that, go and talk to the staff on our stand, which is immediately behind the theatre, and they'll be happy to talk to you about how you can do that. We've talked about social media, integrating social media with your SEO. If that's also something that you need help with more generally, then my team will be happy to advise you on that. So just want to finish off quickly recapping on why, in my experience, businesses fail with SEO. Because a lot of people have attempted it and have not got the results they were hoping for. That's partly because it's becoming much more difficult to rank. The competition is greater. More people are doing SEO. And also consumers have a lot more choice these days. So, there's just a lot more content out there. So that's part of it. But it's also about the fact that people find the amount of information overwhelming, and keeping up to speed with with best practices is actually, it's quite difficult because the goalposts change so frequently. But the other big problem that people have is the amount of consistent effort that SEO requires. So it's not something that happens overnight. You don't suddenly wake up and find yourself on the first page of Google. Something you have to work at consistently for many months, and in some cases, if you're going after a very competitive keyword, it can take years. However, if you can do it successfully, it is well worthwhile. It is the most powerful way of driving traffic, and also, it's a lot cheaper than paying for your traffic. So if you're using pay-per-click, but you're not investing in organic SEO, then in the long run, that's going to cost you a lot more money. But you do have to do it consistently, and you do have to do it properly and follow those best practices. The other problem that I often see is businesses that are doing SEO successfully, in the sense that they are driving the right sort of traffic, but they don't have a systematic process in place for capturing leads and then converting those leads. So once people arrive on the website, that's the beginning of your engagement with them as a potential customer, not the end. So you do need to have a systematic process to convert them into a paying customer. Otherwise, SEO is not actually going to help your bottom line. So you have to have that systematic approach. You have the systematic process that can be followed can be repeated, measured and improved over time. And you also have to have a very clear step-by-step execution plan. So, you can't just sort of fiddle with SEO. You have to be very strategic about it in order to get good results.